right, welcome everyone to our Texas Asian Town Hall for Legislative. My name is Razi Asaduddin, and I'm the President of Asian American Democrats of Texas. Asian American Democrats of Texas. The mission of AADT is to mobilize and unify Asian American Pacific Islander Democrats in Texas into a cohesive political force in order to increase Asian American voice in politics and government. So we aim to connect AAPIs with the state party and help turn out the community. So we aim to train future candidates, staffers, precinct chairs, and grassroots activists as the official caucus of the Texas Democratic Party and general purpose political action committee. And with that, I want to turn over tonight's event on the Texas Legislative Town Hall with our host from our Dallas group, Michelle Wong-Krause. So special thanks to Michelle and Francine Lee in Dallas and Nabila in our Houston chapter for organizing this. If you have any more info, I'll post it at the end, but www.texasasiandemocrats.org, and you can reach our website for future help, events, and see how you can get involved in the party or any of our chapters around the state. Thank you. I will turn it over to you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Razi. And good evening to everyone. My name is Michelle Wong-Krause. I'm president of the North Texas Asian Democrats, and it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's moderator. Judge Tina Clinton is the presiding judge of Criminal District Court 1, which is the oldest criminal district court in the entire state of Texas. She is the first Asian American and person of color to ever preside over this court. She has been a defense attorney, a prosecutor, a law school professor, and a nationally recognized instructor in criminal law. And she will be moderating our panel for this evening. Welcome, Judge Clinton.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wong-Krause. Thank you to AADT for putting this event together. My duty tonight is to moderate through some heavy-duty topics and what has been going on in the legislature so far. We have two amazing panelists. And as a judge, I have to say that I do not endorse anyone, but I do share facts. And some of the bio facts that we have on our two amazing panelists are pretty impressive. I'm going to start with freshman State Representative Jasmine Crockett. She represents District 100 out of Dallas, Texas. This is her first legislative session, and she has been doing an amazing job representing her constituents as well as all Texans in this endeavor. Just a little bit about her. Her passion for empowering people politically and pursuing justice led to her career as a public defender, a county party chair in Bowie, Texas, a civil rights and criminal defense attorney focused on defending the most vulnerable neighbors from unlawful accusations and exploitation in the criminal justice system. Jasmine has purposely made every decision with one goal in mind: protecting the civil liberties of those in underrepresented communities. She has fought valiantly, and she has more fighting left to do since a special session has been called. And we're going to be talking about a lot of these. Just a little bit more about her background. She has a BA in business administration from Rhodes College. She has her JD from the University of Houston. She has been licensed to practice law in Texas, Arkansas, and in the federal courts. Ms. Crockett, as I said, is a past Bowie County Democratic Party chair. She holds various leadership positions within the legal community. She is a former board member of the Dallas County MetroCare Services, and she is a proud member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We are very honored to have her here today. Now, our second panelist is State Representative Gene Wu, who serves the people of District 137 in the Houston area. He was elected in 2012, and prior to that, he was a prosecutor in the Harris County District Attorney's Office, and currently Gene is in private practice as an attorney. He has maintained a focus of improving the lives of Texas children while serving in the state ledge. He has authored numerous pieces of legislation supporting the greater justice for juveniles, specifically dealing with the prison, school to prison pipeline, and he has also passed comprehensive CPS reform bill in the 85th legislative session, which was a great accomplishment. Gene has been appointed to the Texas Access to Justice Commission and the Texas State Child Fatality Review Team. He is now in his 5th term, and he is serving on the Appropriations Committee, and he sits on the subcommittee on Article 3, which is responsible for the funding of our state's education system. He also serves on the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee, bringing his expert knowledge and professional experience to help represent kids and families across Texas. Gene has his Bachelor's of Science from Texas A&M University, and I'm not going to hold that against him that he's an Aggie. And he has a master's degree from the LBJ School of Public Affairs from the University of Texas in Austin. His law degree is from South Texas College of Law in Houston. He is married to his wife and have 2 sons, and they are proud Houstonians. Please help me welcome both of our amazing panelists. Now, we're going to do a deep dive, everyone. Let me give you a little bit of an agenda so you know exactly how this town hall will be scheduled. We are going to start with the topic of voter suppression legislation. We are going to have Gene speak and then Jasmine, and both are going to speak for approximately 7 minutes. We're going to ask that they also tell us a little bit about what they anticipate will be in special session. Then we're going to move on to the topic of education and critical race theory. We'll have Jasmine speak and then Gene on that. And then after about 7 minutes each, we're going to go to redistricting, and we will have Gene start and follow up with Jasmine. After we go through those 3 topics, there will be a Q&A at the end. If you have questions, please put them into the chat. I will be reading off of that during the Q&A, and I will be selecting questions to ask to our 2 panelists. So if you have questions, please go ahead and start putting them into chat so that I can start reviewing them. All right, so with that short summary, I'm going to start with Representative Gene Wu and the issue of voter suppression legislation. Representative.
Hey everybody, it's very good to be here. It's great to see Asian Americans organized and taking action to not only learn but to hopefully advocate for the future. I'm not going to use all 7 minutes of that, but I won't, because this is either we take a really deep, like 3-hour dive into this, or we have to keep it just a little bit on the surface level. So look, I've said this from the very beginning, even before session started. This bill is the Republican Party's top priority, and really top priority for 2 reasons: this and redistricting. And you guys can guess why. Because the party in a state has maintained power basically solely because of this, because of voter suppression, because of gerrymandering. This is the way they've been able to maintain power. The Republican Party's greatest fear in 2020 was losing control of the House, because they wouldn't be able to push this stuff through, because they know, they understand that if the demographics keep changing the way they've been changing for the past 2 decades, and they still are, they're done. Because 4 years of Trump have not added any new people to the Republican Party of Texas. In fact, if anything, it's driven people out. Including in my area, very prominent Asian Americans, like donor level people who are just done with Republicans. And they can't stand the racism, they can't stand the anti-immigrant attitude, they can't stand the anti-Asian attitudes. They're done. And the Republicans are not stupid. They see this and they know that this is what it's going to take to stay in power. So if you look at a lot of what was passed or what was attempted to be passed in SB 7, there are little things that on the surface level don't look like very much. But if you actually think about how elections work, in large numbers, these could have big swings. Things such as elected officials not being allowed to hand out voter registration cards, right? You may not think that's a big deal, but when we go to events every single week and we have town halls, we have meetings, and we sit there and we'll have our staff pass out voter registration cards as we're doing the town hall, those start adding up over time. And they're scared of that. What we did at the end of this last session is not the end. All we did was buy time. All we did was buy time for us to prepare. All we did was buy time for us to rally the troops. They are going to pass this. I guarantee you, because this is their top priority. This and gerrymandering the hell out of redistricting is the way Republicans are going to stay in power. Because if they lose the Texas House, if they can't gerrymander and they can't suppress the votes and they lose the Texas House, that is the beginning of the end. And once they're not able to pass like their crazy laws, the crazy red meat bullshit that really gins up their base, they're going to start slipping. They're not going to be able to interest people anymore. And I think once we take control of the House, that's all that's going to stop. The other really big reason they're doing this is this plays into the big lie. What we're doing in SB 7 and other places, we're playing into the big lie that gins up, that energizes the Trump base, the people who normally would not be engaged in politics but for Trump. And this kind of legislation pats them on the head and says, "Oh, you're right. The election was stolen. There was fraud. There was all these things that even the Republican Secretary of State has said it was not true. But if they pass these bills, they can say, no, you were right. You were right. Come stay with us. Please don't leave." And so they're desperate. They're like critical race theory, all these things. These are things that Trump has talked about. These are things that Trump have pushed. And they're trying to make sure that the Trump base that carried them over the top in 2020 don't leave, because they understand what it means if they don't come back. And that's it.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Jasmine Crockett.
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction, and good to see you again, Jean. Representative Wu is right. A lot of this has to do with Trump is not on the ballot. So how do we get those people to want to participate, right? And so it's not about fraud. I mean, and one of the things I wish we would stop doing is stop trying to answer their lie and trying to prove it wrong, right? Like, because they don't care about facts. To give a little bit more context to this is the Senate bill. The Senate bill author was a volunteer Trump attorney. So if you remember the headline about three attorneys withdrew kind of at the last minute in Pennsylvania. Well, the author of SB 7 was one of those lawyers, okay? He went all the way to Pennsylvania trying to help out Trump. The sponsor on the House side, Briscoe Cain, same thing. He traveled the country trying to go after, other states and overturn the election. So there was no surprise to me when there was an out of bounds resolution that was added to this bill. And I don't want to get really into the weeds, so I'll keep it simple. Long story short, we heard one version of the bill on the floor. We argued back and forth. It got sent to the Senate. They argued back and forth. And then basically it came back and they did what they call a conference committee. And this conference committee composed of 10 people, 5 people from the Senate, 5 people from the House. Of course, it was majority conservative. And I don't think there was a person of color at all on the Senate side of the committee. I think total there were only 3 Democrats between the two. They decided not to consult the Democrats. And this is where we see this out of bounds, meaning no one ever filed a bill on this. This was never in any version of the bill that we had. And we had to pass this extra little part on there, right? In there, they said that you could overturn elections, right? They said that you could overturn elections. And for those of you that practice law, we talked about Judge Yu. She's in the criminal courthouse. That is the highest standard that we have beyond a reasonable doubt. We've all seen that, at least if we watch TV, right? Right under that is clear and convincing evidence. That's what it takes to actually take your kids away. And right now, that's the standard to overturn an election. Below that is just preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. Yep, it probably did happen. That's what they wanted to lower the standard to, number one. Number two, they also wanted to do this thing that we would call forum shop. So if I don't like how the elections went in Dallas County, I don't have to bring that case in Dallas County. Let me bring it in some other county, maybe a county that's not as blue as Dallas County, so I can try to overturn it somewhere else. And you didn't have to prove fraud. You didn't have to prove that any fraud actually affected the outcome. You just had to allege fraud, and maybe there was one piece of fraud, but it wasn't enough to actually overturn the election. It wasn't enough to change the results. And that's what we ended up having to deal with, was them trying to slip in language literally in the middle of the night. And then ultimately they say, we don't know how it got there, right? So there are those that say, hey, walking out was kind of dramatic. Let me tell you something. Regardless of what version comes out, we at least have them on record as saying, that wasn't supposed to be there. We would never do that. We will make sure that that's not going to be a part of the next piece of legislation. They did the same thing about Sunday voting. They said, oh, that was a typo. It said 1 p.m. And if you run the tape, you'll see the bill author defending 1 p.m. on Sundays, saying that he wanted to make sure election workers could go to church. So I didn't know that it was a requisite that you be a Christian who goes to church on Sunday mornings to work elections, but whatever. And so he wanted them to be able to go to church. They're saying, no, it was supposed to be 11 a.m., not 1 p.m. And so we have them walking things back, but that's partially because of the walkout. It's also partially because of the activism of the people. So I don't want any of you to be disenchanted, because it's your activism that is really moving the needle. It's your attention. It's your calls for fair, free, and open elections. The Republicans keep saying we want fair and free, which I have questions about that. They definitely don't want open elections. They want to minimize access to the ballot box when it comes to people of color, when it comes to working class people, when it comes to disabled people, and truly when it comes to people that are in urban areas. They had 2 sets of rules in so many of the pieces of legislation that we dealt with this session, including when it came to elections. Maybe your election can do this in the small town, but they can't do it in the big city. That's what they wanted to do to us, because when you look at the map, where are we Democratic? We're Democratic in counties like Dallas and Harris. So I think that's enough on that. But that's pretty much the long and short of it.
Thank you so much, Representative Crockett. I am going to, panelists, move on to education and critical race theory. Jasmine Crockett, I am going to have you start this topic, please.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. So I did bring up the bill because I had no idea what ultimately got signed into law. So, this is a little bit of sausage making right here. But to be clear, when this bill hit the floor on the House side, we added a ton of amendments. And the governor said, we're going to take this up in special session. And he wanted to take it up in special session because we added all these amendments. We added Frederick Douglass. We added Martin Luther King. We added all these teachings about slavery. All kinds of stuff were added on. And the governor doesn't like that, right? So he wants all that stuff to be taken out. And it's kind of complicated on why and how it ended up at his desk this way. But long story short, to me, I think this is all still yet another distraction, right? I think it's a distraction because we have real issues going on. Like in the state of Texas, ERCOT is a real issue, right? But if I want my base to focus on something else, then I'm going to say, hey, let's talk about this. And you know what? It's wrong when they walk into those classrooms and they talk about things like the insurrection, because this bill would forbid a teacher from being able to talk about current events, current political events, current racial events, a teacher would be forbidden from talking about that, which is ridiculous in and of itself. And there's a lot. So, but I think that it's a distraction. It's a distraction, and it's also an attempt to make sure that that Trump base is fed. You know, when I looked at this bill, and even just kind of thinking about this organization particularly, we started having these conversations in this country about Asian hate and the rise in Asian hate, right? And so this bill says a teacher can't talk about that at all. Furthermore, when you did the intro of Representative Wu, you talked about him being at the LBJ school. And I must say that I had 26 interns this session, more than anyone, I think, in the House. And I love my kids. They made me just look like a rock star. And so many of them came from UT. And there were things that we had to do, but they did receive credit. This bill would actually disallow, I'm not even gonna say this bill would. This bill is going to disallow students from being able to earn credit for doing something like working in my office. They are trying to remove young people from social conversations, from politically engaged conversations. They don't want any of that. So we focus on race in these bills, but they're doing more than that. Because when we look at the next generation, I keep telling everybody, you know what, y'all are better than we ever could wish to be, right? That next generation doesn't have the level of hate that exists in maybe some of the older generations. And they're trying to deny them from being able to participate and being the open-minded, free-spirited, liberal, the majority of them, students that they are. And so it's really disappointing. We will see what happens come special session, because I think what he's trying to do is take off a lot of those slave teachings that we did put in there. He don't want to talk about that. And it's weird because the bill kind of contradicts itself, because it goes down, because the original bill is saying you can't really talk about slavery in the fact that the United States was founded upon it. You know, it's just kind of crazy things like that. But I would hope that, considering the rise that we've seen, and I'll get into the demographics of this state when we talk about redistricting next, but we see this rise overall. And the reality is that Texas itself is a majority minority state at this point.
Thank you so much, Representative Crockett. Representative Wu.
Thank you. I think everything Jasmine said is right on point. Number one, this is red meat for the Trump base, because Trump talks about this. Because the real reason is because some crazy lunatic got into Trump's head through a tweet or something, and now somehow he ended up talking about it, and because it resonates with, because it sounds like something scary, that they're just running with it, because it galvanizes and energizes the craziness. That's one. Two, and I remind everyone, the Republicans are not stupid. All right, they may be a little bit off, but they're not stupid. And the Republican leadership has a tactic with this, and there's been some articles written about this, and people have been trying to figure out what the game is. And what has basically leaked from the National Republican Party is that they're taking this kind of like fringe lunatic movement about attacking critical race theory, and they're using it because the general population doesn't understand what it is. They can say it's whatever they say it is, and they're hoping to use that to galvanize they're hoping using it to galvanize the general public and say, oh, Democrats hate white people. And that builds up more furor for like the things that happened in like 2016 against Hillary. That somehow this becomes a racial thing. They're trying to make it a racial issue, right? And they're hoping that that's what this becomes. Is it that going to work? Don't know. The third thing they're looking for, and Jasmine is right on point about this, is they literally, I'm sorry, my phone is slipping from my The third thing is they literally want schools to stop teaching about slavery. That's not a joke. They want schools to stop teaching about slavery. They want to stop them from teaching about crop sharing, about the genocide of the Native Americans. They want schools to not teach about the the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Japanese internment. They don't want schools to talk about these things anymore. Or at least if they do, just to say one sentence about it and move on. The idea is they're losing all young people. Republican Party is losing all the young people. And young people are, as they say, woke. And they care about these kind of racial issues and societal issues and justice issues. And in their minds, if we don't talk about it, then they won't think about it. And literally, for those of us who are from Asia, who come from Asian countries, who have a long history of using re-education, I think we should be offended that our democracy, our country that we love, is using the same tactics as communist China, as North Korea, as any other places that use education as a means of social control. And lastly, on a personal level, as an Asian American, I feel like our history, our community has been ghosted in America for so long that we are invisible people, and so have Black people, and so have Hispanic people, and so have gay people, and many other communities that have been invisible. We are coming into view now, and they are scared of that, and they're trying to push back against our visibility. And one of the things that it's not just critical race theory, but literally a resolution memorializing the murder of Vanessa Guillen almost died because of Republicans. Our resolution against Asian hate crimes was killed. A resolution that spent no money, made no law, and just said anti-Asian hate is wrong. And the state says this. This was left to die in the Senate, and their actual words were, it wasn't important to us. That was the literal statement from the Lieutenant Governor's office. It wasn't important. Because they like it when Asian Americans, when other groups come here, we work hard, we build up the state, but the moment we speak up, the moment Black communities speak up, the moment Hispanic communities speak up, you guys are now problems. And you need to be silenced. And this is about silence.
Thank you, Representative Wu. We will be moving on to our third topic before the Q&A, and that is on the issue of redistricting. Representative Wu, I'm going to start with you, please.
What else is there to say about redistricting? It's gonna suck. Holy crap, it's gonna suck. Because, in the years past, we were always at least moderately hopeful that the Republicans would go way, way too far, which they always do. They always go way, way too far. That if there's one thing we can count on in the legislature is when the Republicans have an advantage, they will overstep it by miles, and the courts will have no choice but to rebuke them. But with the makeup of the Fifth Circuit the way it is, with the makeup of the Supreme Court the way it is, I don't know that they're going to do anything about it. And this Supreme Court has already shown that they're happy to be openly partisan in their decisions. It's going to be bad. We're going to get, I think we're going to get some extremely gerrymandered maps where there's a 100% chance that we will. There's going to be a lawsuit filed the moment that we do it. It's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be really weird because I don't think we've ever had a redistricting special session this late in the game. The numbers are not coming out until late September, early October. So we won't go in until like mid to late October at best. If somehow we actually come up with a map, that we won't have a map until maybe November, December. So what happens to the filing period? When are we going to have the primary? It's going to go to a lawsuit. And a lawsuit probably in Austin. So does it get paused? And what does the Fifth Circuit then unpause it or leave the pause? I don't know. It's going to be really complicated. It's going to be nasty. And if anything, if you care about what happens in your community, go testify when we have redistricting hearings. Because the number one thing we need is evidence. We need testimony from the public about what's going on, what that map does to your community, and we need it to have as evidence. The best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario that I can think of, is that we pass HR 1 and HR 4 in Congress. And I can't remember the name of HR 1, but HR 4 is the John Lewis Act. Those bills have lots of provisions about redistricting and the way things need to be done. If we can get those through and make them do it, make the feds watch them do it the right way, there'll be some security, but it's going to be bad.
Okay, so Jean definitely summed that up, but let me give you a little bit of a different perspective, just kind of overall, because you guys may be across the map on kind of your understanding of redistricting. So number one, this kind of ties in with the voting, right? So one of the great things that I think we did was we did not only just walk out on the bill, but we did go to DC. And there were a number of us that were advocating for the passage of HR 1, which is For the People Act, as well as the John Lewis Act. And so what Gina is referring to is pre-clearance. And so basically to make sure that these maps are drawn fairly. I will say that there actually is a provision in one of the bills also that would mandate that we have like an electronic drawing of maps. Right now, most people don't really know how we get to our maps and what happens. So normally, from what I understand, it's my first time, but I've been trying to get up to speed. And so normally the delegation gets together. When I say the delegation, it's everyone in that county. So when we're drawing state house maps, the rules are different from Senate maps and from congressional maps, right? But we draw the state house, we draw the state Senate, and then we also draw the congressional seats. What is very frustrating about the congressional seats that we will get is that Texas really should have picked up 3 congressional seats. We've got an undercount, surprise, surprise. And so we're only picking up 2 seats. And when we talk about undercounts, we tend to have a higher undercount in areas that are people of color. And also, I think we obviously had some issues with COVID-19. And when we look at the growth in the state of Texas, what is very frustrating about these 2 pickups, when we should be happy and screaming for joy, is that in the last 10 years, somewhere over 50% of the growth has been due to the brown community. Right behind that, somewhere 14 to 16% of the growth in the state has been the Black community. And right behind that is the Asian community. And right behind that is white folk. Okay. So when you look at the growth in the last decade in this state, it has been due to people of color that are not residing in rural Texas. I can almost put money on that. They're residing in the urban centers. And so this idea that we will have these 2 new pickups and they will look like what the growth looked like is not going to happen. And that's what's really frustrating. And so we do need a check and balance on Texas because Texas is out of control. As it relates to our state house maps, because the delegations draw them, one of the rules is that you can't take, say, my district and just draw a skinny line through South Dallas and then take me into, say, Collin County, right? That has historically been red. You can't do that. You've got to keep everyone in one county. To the best of your ability. There's like always an exception to the rule, right? So what will happen is the Dallas delegation will get together, just like Harris County delegation will get together, and they will kind of draw like the first version or iteration of their own maps. So in Dallas County, I don't know what that really looks like. I mean, you're talking about a county that only has 2 Republican reps right now. One won her seat by 200 votes. The other one won his seat by 1,000 votes. And to be clear, I personally am advocating that we don't draw new lines. Surprise, surprise, I'm the one that's all over the place, right? So I don't want to draw new lines. I want to keep these old lines. And I'm going to tell you why. It was somewhere between 10,000 and 12,000 votes total in the state that actually kept us from flipping the House. That's it. So all of these races were razor thin, and knowing how far to the right so many of these Republicans have gone, I think we can actually flip some of those seats. The plain language reading of the Constitution says that we shall draw new lines the next regular session after we receive our numbers, not the next regular or called session, but the next regular session. And so that would be the 88th. So I'm actually advocating to the best of my ability that we don't draw new state house lines and make them be stuck with these lines that they barely were able to get their seats back in. And I really do think that we could flip the House. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But as Representative Wu stated, it's really important that you come out and testify. That's how we make our record. That's what we need to go into court with. But I am advocating that we don't draw new lines.
Hey, can I add one quick thing?
Of course.
It's going to be actually really interesting and maybe even funny, because redistricting is going to be a challenge for the Republicans, because it's going to pit urban Republicans, like suburban Republicans, against the rural Republicans, because the rural areas are shrinking so much. They're going to have to make a choice of, do they protect rural Republicans, which are the more traditional Republicans, or do they protect the newer suburban Republicans? They can do one or the other. They can't do both. If they start smashing, like taking areas from Democrats and pushing them into suburban areas, well, those areas are going to lose. If they take Democrats and start pushing them into rural areas, well, those guys will lose. So they're going to have to make a choice, and you're going to have Republicans getting mad at each other because they want to protect their friends, and they're going to have this coalition between suburban Republicans fighting the rural Republicans. And don't forget, the Speaker of the House is a rural Republican. The Lieutenant Governor is a suburban Republican. So, you know, maybe we go get some popcorn.
All amazingly important factors. Now, we are headed into our Q&A, and I have questions that have come not only previous to the town hall that people have sent in, but I also have questions from the Facebook feed and from some of the chats in this particular Zoom. So in no particular order, I'm going to ask the questions, and Representative Wu and Representative Crockett, either one of you are welcome to answer. This is not a one of you other. The first question comes from Freestone County Democratic Party. We are working diligently in Freestone County to get people registered and aware of the issues regarding voter rights. We are wondering something about the voter rights bill under consideration. If the voter bills were all passed as they are currently written, is there an estimate on how many people would suddenly be unable to vote as they have in the past? For example, change of voter location, new requirements, etc. How would the bills affect the registration process, if at all?
I actually don't have I don't know if Jasmine has a good answer, but I don't have an answer for that. I don't think the people that I've talked to have a solid answer to that. A lot of these things is when we do numbers about how many people would it affect, like such as when we put out numbers when we did voter ID, and they estimated that about 400,000 Texans would be affected by the voter ID laws because of their age, because of where they were born, and et cetera, et cetera. Those are guesses, and based on other demographic factors, we don't know for sure. And because SB 7 did so many different things, and some of those things might overlap with the same voter, I've never seen any solid numbers. I don't know if Jasmine has seen anything different.
No, I haven't seen any numbers, but I do know that there was a concern about voter registrars and this bill. And so we don't know how many voter registrars will decide, you know what, I don't want to take any risks because they've added some extra drama if we're trying to register people to vote. So it's hard to actually have a number, but I can tell you that it would be a significant impact. And honestly, while I say that it's Black, brown, working folk, things like that, it actually has the ability to have a very large detrimental effect in the rural areas. And I personally don't think that all House Republicans were on board with this bill. They actually did a few things to help us kill this bill, to be perfectly honest. And so, you know, if it would have came up for a vote, they would have voted for it. But there were House Republicans that did not like the Senate version. So I know that they had a lot of concerns about their rural population as well.
Thank you very much. Next question is coming from Facebook. Assuming Republicans push through more gerrymandering and suppression, how do we win?
We vote. I mean, I personally believe that we are blue. I think that we've been beat down for so long and been told it's a red state, it's a red state. Your vote doesn't matter because we're red, 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 red. But when you look at how narrow these races are getting statewide, if you go back to Obama and Romney, we were double digits. When you look at Hillary and Trump, it was 9 points. So we finally got under double digits. And this last time it was 6 points. And we saw a huge increase in voting in general, right? And so that's why there's an issue with making sure. Here's the deal. They are trying to take away what we already have, because what we already have in place as far as accessibility is too accessible. And Texas makes it harder than all other 49 states to vote as it is. So it doesn't make sense, right? Like, we still have terrible voter participation overall in our state. So they are just trying to, all we need to do is vote. We just need to engage people and tell them, you know what, take a leap of faith, just go out and do it, and we can win.
Yeah. No, I have nothing to add to Jasmine saying except to remind everyone that Texas is like the second or third worst voter participation state in the nation, right? And if we're getting close to winning, with being the third or the worst participation in the country, man, if we can just be like maybe the 10th worst, we could do. I mean, we could take the House back. And this is the call to everybody on this call. All of us who are all of y'all who are listening on here, you come from communities that don't necessarily participate all that much. I know you don't, because I work in those same communities. And if we can get the Asian American turnout just a tiny bit higher, if we can convince Asian Americans that the Republicans do not have your interest in mind, and we go do a little bit more, we push a little bit harder, we can make up those gains. There is only so much that they can do with voter suppression. And the one thing that they've learned from the past, and what they're fearful of at the same time that they're trying to do this, is they know that when they go overboard on voter suppression, people turn out more. People get angry and they turn out more. We need to go back to our communities and tell them they're passing these bills to make it harder for you to not be able to vote. So what do you want to do in response, right? You want to sit there and get punched in the face, or do you want to do something about it? And we need to go into all our communities and remind them of that. Like, either you fight back or you lay down.
The next question is actually from our chat here. How important is the Texas governor's race in pushing back on the Republicans' agenda?
I mean, I think that it's paramount. I don't know if we will get a Democratic governor, since no one has actually said that they're running on the Democratic ticket just yet. But but it's really important, because you see the power that the governor has, right? That is still a co-equal branch of government. He doesn't realize that it's co or equal. I don't know, but whole other issue. But when the governor is setting an agenda, and the governor has the ability to do things like call a special session because he's having a tissy fit about his bill not going through, right? Like, the governor will call down to different state reps offices and say, hey, I want this bill. You need to author this bill. I had a bill, and I'm just tell you real quick, because this bill made me so mad. And so there was a Republican out of Sherman, Texas, that filed this bill that was targeted on homeless people. And I was so mad, because this session I spent so much time fighting for homeless people. And this bill would have made it a Class B misdemeanor, which means that it's punishable for up to 6 months in jail and or a fine not to exceed $2,000 if you urinated in public or defecated in public. I was like, how about you spend the money that we're going to waste on putting homeless people in jail? How about we spend that on getting some public restrooms so that they have somewhere to go? It was absolutely ridiculous. And it was like one of the lower priorities for the governor. And like, it was revealed to me later, he was like, the governor's office called. I'm like, and do you work for the governor, or do you work for the people of your district? Because you don't even have a homelessness problem in your district to be filing this stupid bill. But that's what we dealt with all session. Like, those are some of the bills you didn't hear about that, like, we were able to, kill in committee or something like that, or really make it like make them look really, really bad, which is hard because they like have no shame. Like, they'll stand up there. You think about the heartbeat bill, right? That was authored and carried by an attorney who graduated UT Law. You're asking her questions about this huge sweeping abortion bill, and she's like, I'm not advised. I'm not advised. I'm not advised. I'm like, how are you passing such a big bill and you don't know what you're doing? But that's what happens in the Texas House. Just saying.
Everyone has to. Okay. I am going to go to the next question. And
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm at a different event. I got to go to my next event. Thank you for having me. I got to run.
Thanks, Jean.
Appreciate it.
All right. Jasmine, we're on the hook for just how about one more question? Okay.
That's fine.
All right. So this question, and you talked a little bit about it, but I'm hoping that you'll go a little bit further in. This is about the critical race theory. So how will the new potential bill on critical race impact the teaching of African American, Asian American, and Mexican American studies in this state?
Yeah, so that's really a good question for the State Board of Education, which they're trying to figure out, what do we do with this bill in light of kind of the current curriculum. The bill specifically says that you can't, let me be clear. So no like school district can force or basically make part of their curriculum anything that basically educates about slavery and any of the atrocities, right? Like slavery, the political issues, just social issues in general. So there is a provision in the bill that says that you can. So let's say you've got a teacher that's like, this is what I want to do. It does allow for flexibility somewhat, not really. And it says that a teacher, if they choose to talk about certain things, has to make sure that they talk about it in a very neutral way. I don't really know what that means. This is terrible. First of all, it's a terribly drafted bill. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, the facts are the facts, and seemingly Republicans love to debate what the facts are. And honestly, this is just a whitewashing of history that they're attempting to do. They don't want you to talk about the bad stuff. They don't want you to be able to say, like, it talks about race. It also talks about sex, right? So they don't want you to talk about, like right now, women still don't have equal pay. when it comes to men. They don't want you to talk about the historical nature of that and the fact that that has been a problem in this country. They basically want to act like everything is peachy, and it's not. They don't want you to, and they call it critical race theory, and critical race theory isn't taught in elementary school, or like it's a college type of thing, right? It's upper level. They're calling it that, and that goes back to what Rep. Wu was saying about them basically knowing that nobody really knows what it is, so they're then painting it to be their own thing. But essentially what they want to do is delete the current curriculum or any curriculum that talks about the atrocities of, say, stealing the land from Native Americans, and they don't want you to talk about any of that. They want it to be that white people have never done anything wrong, period. That's it.
So I told you that you wanted that was the last question, but I do have one follow-up, and
No,
unfortunately you are the only one that I have left to ask, and that's this. So we have a special session that's being called, and my understanding is that it is scheduled by the 8th. How are we planning on dealing with this special session, if you are free to answer?
I was about to say, I may have to kill you. No. I will say this. It is hard to plan for the unknown. And so I believe that that's why the governor has done this way. Typically with a special session, it's my understanding that when the governor calls it, he also gives you like what the call is for, right? Because who just says, oh, I want a special session, I'll figure it out later, right? Like it doesn't really work that way. And so I believe that he is holding back on what is on the call for a specific reason. It puts us in a disadvantaged position from a strategic standpoint on what it is that we're going to do. So I can't play defense until I know what the offense is going to do. We have seen his rants on Facebook, but now he's hanging out with Trump today. So who knows? I mean, who knows what it's going to be, right? But we are going to have more than one special. And so I don't know when the next special will be. And I don't know if we're going to be limited to 2 specials or if we're going to have 3. It just depends on kind of what he decides, because he controls it. And so I will tell you that my plan going into special is to be even more aggressive than I was during the regular session, because we can only deal with what's on the call. So unlike a regular session, you file whatever bills. If they make it through, great. On a special, he sets the agenda. And so far, he's not said anything to me that makes sense for democracy. So unless he wants to talk about ERCOT and really doing something about it, I don't really have any intentions of letting up on any of his dumb bills. I plan to do everything that I can to kill them. I plan to organize and assist in any grassroots organizations that want to come out and speak against them. And I plan to, motivate whatever types of options are available to us, depending on kind of what ends up on the call and where we end up on those issues.
Representative, thank you so much. We want to thank you for the valuable time that you have given us in educating us and being able to inform us. You and Representative Wu have done a tremendous job this session, and I know that your work is on. And the fact that you have taken time out to be able to join us tonight is not only a pleasure, but it's an honor. So thank you. Thank you, Representative Wu. I know that he has many speaking engagements as well as you. And so we want to be able to thank all the people who have joined us to be able to listen in, to be able to learn. And not only that, but ultimately, this is not just for us. It's so that we can share, we can educate our circles of influence so that we know what we need to do to protect our communities and to make sure that we know how we can assist you and the rest of the state reps. So with that, I'm going to send it back to Rosie.
All right, if you enjoyed anything in this session, you can go to www.texasasiandemocrats.org. We have a lot of events coming up in the summer related to voter registration, outreach, mapping Texas strategy, redistricting, and precinct chairs. So if any of that sounds interesting or you want to help out with that, be linked with the party. just reach out to us on the page, and we'd be happy. We have new chapters in San Antonio, Austin, and new chapter in San Antonio. So if you're out there, feel free to join. Myra will love the help. We're pretty strong, and we still have our existing chapters in Austin, Houston, and North Texas and Dallas. So we'd love to have all the help. Everything we talked about takes each and every one of us to talk to our families and get involved and fight the good fight, just like these state reps that have been really getting our backs this time, and now they're going back. So I wish the rest of the time they could spend with their families here before that special session, because it's been crazy the past few months. I can't imagine what it's like to be them. All right. Well, good evening, and find us on Facebook. Thank you.